This video is sponsored by Squarespace. What a nice day it is here, and what a day it is to be carrying on working on the M140i project. Okay, so if you're new to the channel, you're probably thinking, what on earth is that? It's half an M2, half a BMW 140i. Now, I bought this 140i mega cheap from auction because it had been stolen and looked like stripped for parts. There's no front end on it, there was no rear bumper, and it looks like the auction have put on these terrible wheels as well just to get it moving. Now, the interior was absolutely disgusting and it was full of what we thought was fire extinguisher dust. But now it's nice and clean and looking fresh. It's just the outside we've got to sort out. Now, instead of buying standard 140i parts to replace the parts that were stolen off it, I decided to get a BMW M2 competition front end for it, which actually fitted on pretty easily. But then we run into the issue with, what do we do with the rear end? Now, the M2 front is really aggressive, and although the front arches aren't really wider than the rear arches, they just look a lot more aggressive than the rear. At the end of the last video, I left you guys with about 3 options that we could probably go for on this 140i. Now, the option that I've chosen, I'm about 90% sure has never been done before on a BMW 140i, so wish me luck. But before we get to that, we need to sort out these hideous alloys. Let's go. Okay, so first place we're heading is, of course, Wheel Mania, the place where I get all the wheels for all my cars from. But before we head there, we've got to pick up a little something, well, I say a little something quite big for the GT86. This is a wing for the GT86. I know how you lot love big wings. To Wheel Mania. Okay, so here we are at Wheel Mania. These guys always get the best wheels for my projects. Let me show you what we've got for the 140i. Okay, so these are the new alloys and they look absolutely sick. They're way better than I expected. These are Bowler FLE alloys. I had Bowler on the Golf R, I've gone for it on the 140i as well. Good thing about Wheel Mania, you tell them what car you've got and they can tell you the maximum width and height that you can go for. Height, diameter. So these are a 19-inch and a 9.5J on the rear, so they're gonna fill the arches perfectly. And if we go for that M2 rear end, we should be able to work with these as well. So a massive shout out to Bowler for getting the wheels sorted so quick, and also Wheel Mania. Let's get these in the M4. Let's get back to the unit. And guys, if you need any wheels, I've put a link in the description box below for Wheel Mania. These are gonna look so good on the 140i. And these are going to go straight for sale on a website that I built using Squarespace, who have sponsored today's video. From websites to online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to build and run your business. So whether you have an online blog, a hair salon, or a business selling used car parts, you're going to need a website, and Squarespace has made it easy for anyone to create a professional looking website in minutes. Check this out. Okay, so once you're on squarespace.com, you can choose from hundreds of templates. I'm going to start with this one. Once you've got your template, you can then drag and drop your own logos in there, drag and drop your own photos in there, and even add text. This website's going to be dedicated to selling the old parts of the 140i. So here's the Grandad spec alloys that we're going to be selling. And before you know it, we've got our first product on there. And it really is that simple to create a professional looking website with Squarespace. So when you need a website, go to squarespace.com or click the link in the description box below. And when you're ready to launch your website, use code Matt Armstrong. That's going to get you 10% off your first website or domain name. Thanks Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Let me show you what I've got down here. Okay, so before we fit the new alloys, I want to fit this. This is Bilstein Coilover suspension that I got from MML Performance. Now, we know already that it's got some IBAT lowering springs on, which we think the previous owner may have installed because this has probably been modified before, but obviously all the parts got stripped off it. Now, I could just stick with the IBAT lowering springs because they do sit actually quite nice, but we want to make sure that the fitment is absolutely perfect, because if we start adding more girth to this thing, we want to make sure we can adjust the ride height to suit the girth and the wheels as well. So that is why I've picked some adjustable coilover suspension from Bilstein. Let's get this fitted on there, then we can get the wheels on. Let's do this. Okay, so I was hoping that these coilovers would be quite easy to install and there'll be no seized bolts or anything like that because somebody's already fitted eyeback lowering springs to it already. And I was kind of right. It was pretty easy to get off. There was only one drop link bolt to undo and a pinch bolt holding the wheel hub to the suspension leg. Then it was just the top mount bolts and then I could remove the suspension leg from the car. Now the only thing that would be keeping off the stock suspension is the top mount, so that needs to be removed and then changed over onto the Bilstein coilovers. And once that was all fitted, it was time to put the Bilstein coilovers back onto the car, and it fitted just how it came off. And there we go, fresh coilovers for the 140i. I believe the coilovers have an adjustment of around minus 50mm lower and minus 30mm lower. Now moving on to the rear, which is a little different from the front because the damper is separate to the spring, but again, it's only 2 bolts to get the spring out. One on the damper and one on the lower arm. Then to remove the damper, there's just 3 more bolts under the wheel arch lining. And again, we just need to swap the top mounts over. Then we can put the new damper in and the new spring. Wait, hang on, I just realised that I've done this wrong. So, up here, this cup has to be removed. This is where the old spring sits in. And then now, this adjuster one can fit in there. Nice and snug. Up there, if you can see. Anyway, let's crack on. Okay, so the coilover suspension is fitted. That's probably the easiest car I've ever put suspension on, probably because it came off before, obviously, to do those eyeback springs. But nevertheless, the Bilstein suspension is on. Now, the moment of truth, the new wheels going on to the 140i. Now, I've just had a thought that I may need wheel spacers for the front because these wheels are spec'd for a BMW 140i. And obviously, we've got the M2 front end, but we'll find out as soon as we put it on. Now, the suspension is adjusted to wherever. I've not got it at the ride height or anything yet. We're just going to do trial and error. So let's put these wheels on and see what they look like. I'm absolutely buzzing for this. Come on. Yes, there is nothing like new wheels on a car, especially when the old ones you took off were granddad spec. These Bowler alloys are looking so good and so fresh in that silver paint, and no wheel space is needed for the rear. The fitment is absolutely perfect. 9.5J on the rear. They're looking so clean. And now with the coilovers on, it's sitting pretty much perfect. I would probably go a little bit lower on the rear, but we're going to wait for the springs to settle in before I start adjusting things. But we do have a problem with the fronts. These alloys are spec'd for a standard BMW 140i, which means they fit absolutely perfect on the rear. As for the front, well, I don't know if you've noticed or I've mentioned, there is a BMW M2 front end on this, and that is going to cause us issues pretty much for the rest of this build. Now, as we've gathered, the M2 is wider than the 140i. Now, if these wheels were on a standard 140i, they'd fit perfect, but unfortunately, they're pretty much hiding inside this arch. Now, they do look really good from here, and the reason I've ordered silver and not a dark colour is to make them look a little bit bigger than usual. But when you come to the side, yes, they are really hidden underneath that arch, so we're definitely going to need some wheel spacers, but no drama at all. That's the kind of worms I've opened by doing this front end. But overall, we took a massive step in the right direction for the 140i, but it doesn't stop there. There's more. Now, the main question a lot of you guys have been asking is, what are we going to be doing with the rear of the car? Are we going to be widening it, or are we going to be leaving it as it is? Well, I left you guys with about 3 options in the last video, and well, here's the outcome. Now, option number 1 would be to leave it as it is. We crack on with the build, we colour code everything, we see how it looks, and we carry on modifying, and we go from there. That'll be the one that causes the less headaches. Option number 2, we get genuine BMW M2 rear quarters off the coupe. They need cutting, welding and filling to the rear of the car, and as I've explained in the previous video, it's something that's probably way out of my league and we need a body shop to do, and it probably could take up to around 6 months to finish. Option number 3 was the Chinese wide arch kit for the 140i.
Well, let me explain how I've not really gone for any of those options, and we're going to try and attempt something that has definitely never been done before. Well, I kind of think it's never been done before. Now, before I go on to show you this, and I still don't know whether it's going to be possible or not, amazingly, we are getting support from BMW Sytner in Leicester, and as a thank you for you guys for watching the channel, they're going to be giving you 15% off any genuine BMW part that you order from there. I've put all the links in the description box below. Make sure when you order, you use code MAP15 and you'll get 15% off. This is massive. Let me go show you what we've got. So to start things off, this is a standard BMW 140i rear bumper with a carbon accents rear diffuser. Now, the 140i has exits for the exhaust each side, one here and one on the other side. Now, a BMW M2 has 2 exits each side for the exhaust, and the bumper is wider as well. Jesus, it's getting hot in here. But anyway, if I wanted to fit the M2 rear bumper, then first off, I'd have to widen the arches, else the bumper would poke out. Also, the rear lights on an M2 is different to a 140i, so the shape of the bumper would also be different. But we've got a solution to this. And that solution is this. This is a BMW M2 style rear bumper for a BMW 140i. So this should fit directly on, and we won't have to do any modifications to the arches, and this will look like an M2 from the rear minus the rear arches. I've got this rear bumper as opposed to trying to widen the 140i rear bumper, because I still don't know what we're going to attempt is even going to be possible, and worst case scenario, we can keep this bumper on and run it as it is. So, well, let's get fit in and see how it fits. Okay, so it's back off again for the rear wheels. Then to remove a rear bumper off the 140i, it's pretty easy. You can just attack it with an 8mm socket. There's a few bolts on the arch lining, then one each side connecting the bumper to the rear quarter. Then the rest of the bumper is all on clips that we can pull out. Then once we've disconnected all the clips and got the bumper off, we need to remove all the parking sensors, the reverse camera, and the registration plate lights as well. Now, before we fit the new bumper, we've got to remove these bumper brackets each side, because the new bumper is a different shape to the old one, so the new bumper doesn't work with the old brackets. But once the new brackets are on, the new bumper went on pretty easily for an aftermarket bumper and fitted quite nicely. Then it was back on with the rear wheels, down on the ramp, and this is what the final product looks like. And there we go, an M2 style rear bumper fitted to my BMW 140i. And do you know what, as aftermarket bumpers go, that actually fitted quite nicely, almost like an OEM fitment. It's nice to have a bit of a difference from fitting fiberglass stuff. But yes, now it does look even more funny with a black bumper and obviously no exhaust tips as well. But obviously we've got to crack a few eggs to make an omelette. It's always the case. And now we've caused ourselves even more work, because not only do we need an exhaust because there's not one on it, we need a custom built exhaust, because now we need 2 twin tips either side like the BMW M2. Now the M2 rear back box don't actually fit onto the 140i, it's a little bit wider, so we're going to need it obviously custom made. Hence why I wanted to get the wheels on pretty soon so I could drive it to a place to get the exhaust made. But we've got all that to look forward to. Hey, it's not work if you love what you do. Now, let me show you what we've got from BMW. Now yes, essentially I build these cars for myself and I have a lot of fun doing it, but a bigger reason behind it all is to provide good content for you guys. So if we were going to go for the genuine M2 rear quarters, it would mean dropping the car off to a body shop where it could be up to 6 months. Yes, we'd have a nice looking car at the end of it, but it's not great content. I think personally just loses the whole point of this channel. I've inspired and give confidence to so many of you guys to go out and go and modify or go and fix your own cars through me just giving it a go myself. And yes, whilst I might need help here and there for stuff that I can't do, giving the car to someone for the majority of the year just doesn't make sense for me, the channel, or for you guys. So now we are left with this. So this is a genuine BMW 235i wide body kit that they use on their race cars. Now yes, the 235i is still a 2-door coupe and it does have the different rear lights like the BMW M2, so it's going to need a lot of modification to fit. Now this kit has actually been modified to fit a BMW 140i before, but a 3-door one, not a 5-door one. Okay, so quite obviously this is just randomly stuck on and it's not a final product quite clearly. Now, the reason why this side is actually cut for the door already and around the door handle as well is because last weekend I actually started filming this and managed to delete half the footage off my camera as well. Now, if we actually get this to work, I'm pretty confident that this has never been done to a 5-door 140i, but there's probably a reason why. There is a lot to do. We've got to trim around this rear light here to make that fit. We've got to make this gap in the door pretty seamless and look nice with the body paneling, and also there's going to be a gap between the body kit and the door on the inside, so that's got to be filled somehow. I definitely am going to need some help from a body shop, but I want to be able to try and attempt this mainly myself. I don't know if I'm going to do it. Now, I think it actually widens the rear by about 40 mil. So this is just the rear of the kit. We don't actually need the front side of the kit because I think it would work perfectly just how it is. If we start widening the front, then we're just going to open another can of worms. But I think that would actually be pretty perfect as it is. Now, the only weird thing that I don't really like too much about the kit is that the arch actually steps out quite a bit here, and that's how they leave it. The side skirt doesn't actually mold into the arch. There is a step here, so I'm still unsure about it, and I don't really want to do anything that I can't unchange off the body, but if we can get this to work, we could be onto a winner. Now, although it doesn't look like much now, it could turn out to be something special, or it might not be. It might not even be possible, but you can't blame me for trying. So I want to know, what do you guys think? Do you think the kit looks good? Do you think we'll be able to pull it off, or should we just stick with it as it is? Either way, I know a lot of you are supporting whatever I do, and if you do want to support the channel and support this build, then I'll put a merch link in the description box below, and there is new German jet tags for all the guys who are repping German cars watching this. So again, thanks for watching this video. See you in the next one. Peace out.